Buckle up, my friends. It is time for another episode of The Morning After, and I am fired up for this one. You can hear it in my voice, and if my voice is a little raspy, well, it's that time of year. I came down with a little bit of a cold over the weekend, so bear with me. If I sneeze or if I cough at all during the show, well, I'm doing an hour-long podcast by myself, and you're a loyal listener because you're here and you're just going to deal with it. This is the morning after week 13 in the NFL. It is the morning after the craziest college football weekend I have ever experienced. And we are going to get to all of it here on the show. Coming up on this episode of the morning after, obviously lots of football talk. But before we get to any of that, please, if you're here listening, you probably already are subscribed to the YouTube channel and or the newsletter. If you're not, now would be a good time to do that. Click all the buttons. Follow us on social media. I'm tweeting out clips and obviously lots of YouTube videos and the weekly newsletter, which is completely free. And I hope that you've enjoyed it. The open rate's been fantastic, over 60%, which for a newsletter is really solid. And I hope the success continues because I think I'm having a whole lot of fun doing this. This is something I look forward to now. And for those unaware, I record the show now on Sunday nights after literally we just finished the Sunday Night Football game, crazy game between the Commanders and the Broncos. And I look forward to this every Sunday. It is a part of the week that I really enjoy. It helps me kind of reset, reframe, refocus, and regurgitate everything I saw from the weekend and gets me set for another week of football. So all of that aside, please subscribe, click all the buttons, lots of good content coming, and we're just getting started, baby. We have a ton of football left on the season, and of course we will continue to give you great content even after the football season ends. But enough wasting time. Let's get to what we saw over the weekend. Absolutely nuts. Bananas, bonkers, every single word, adjective I could use to describe the college football playoff situation right now and the college football coaching carousel. It is just pure drama. The Lane Kiffin saga finally came to an end. That is obviously where we start today. He will be the next coach at LSU. It looks like he's bringing some of his staffers from Ole Miss with him, not all of them. Pete Golding is going to stay. He's going to be the new interim. Actually, he was promoted to the actual head coach for Ole Miss. We'll see how long he stays. But I like that move for Ole Miss. He's the main recruiter, and a good job, frankly, by Keith Carter. I think he kind of kept Lane talking all night. Like the way that I see this situation play out, Lane wanted to have his cake and he wanted to eat it too. He wanted to go to LSU because, let's be honest, that's the better job. And it's not a knock on Ole Miss, but that's a top 4 job in college football. That's a job on par with Georgia and Bama and Texas and Ohio State, and that's a top tier job. Ole Miss is a step below that. First of all, the talent in Louisiana is second to none, and you're not competing with any other Power 4 programs in the state of Louisiana, whereas Ole Miss is. I know Mississippi State's not exactly a powerhouse, but you're still competing with a lot of other talent in that area. And then the money and the resources that LSU has, I just think is better than what Ole Miss has. So I don't knock Lane for wanting to go to LSU. And I don't knock him for doing it before the playoff. He really didn't have a choice. Remember, Bo Prabula last year had to leave Penn State, backup quarterback, had to leave Penn State in the middle of a playoff run because he was going to go be the starter at Missouri. And it's the calendar that really handcuffed the coaches and the players into this situation where they have to make these moves right after the season ends. The issue that I have with how Lane handled this is he wanted not only the cake, but he wanted the ice cream and the sprinkles and the cherry on top. After you make the decision and you are open with the Ole Miss brain trust that you're leaving to go to a conference rival, the audacity to then say, you know what, I also want to stay for the next month and basically be a walking billboard for LSU while I'm on the sidelines of Ole Miss coaching in the playoff. Like, it's insane. And I credit Keith Carter, the AD of Ole Miss, for putting his foot down and saying, no, Lane, if you're going to LSU, you're done. And Lane, I guess, tried to continue to push and push and push. But what I think happened during this negotiation, which took place on Saturday night, I think it actually bought Keith Carter like a few hours to go reach out to some of the Ole Miss staffers and say, hey, are you with me or are you with Lane? And what I think that did is it actually prevented a mass exodus. Because let's be honest, Lane wanted to burn the place down. Lane wanted to not only go to LSU, but coach Ole Miss through the playoff and then take as many staff members as humanly possible with him to Baton Rouge. It really was one of those scenarios where Lane could have set the Ole Miss program back significantly further than it will be. And again, I credit Keith Carter. He played his hand as well as he could have. When you have a coach in this situation who wants to leave, you can't prevent him from leaving. But what you can do is you can prevent the mass exodus from following him. And I do think that's what took place here. I'm going to be rooting for Ole Miss like heck in the playoff. I don't have a horse in the race. Penn State's obviously out. I'm going to be rooting like heck for Ole Miss to pull this thing off in the playoff because I'll be honest, just a remarkable scene and made for TV drama that took place. Poor Marty Smith is like on location at wherever he was in in Oxford last night, basically saying, the announcement's imminent. It wasn't imminent, not until the next day. So bizarre situation. And I do think it only hurts the players and the fan base, these types of crazy coaching sagas. And it really is backwards because the coaches and the agents make all the money and the players are left holding the check and the fan base is screaming what could have been. So we'll see what happens in the playoff scenario here. I honestly don't know how it's going to play out with the committee and how much they downgrade Ole Miss, but Ole Miss does move on. Pete Golding will be the new head coach. Lane Kiffin to LSU. A lot of other coaching moves took place over the weekend. I mean, this was the day, Saturday night into Sunday, for all of the drama to take place. You have John Sumrall going from Tulane to Florida. I actually like this move a lot for Florida. He is a defensive freak. He has an intense motor about him with a really strong work ethic. And it's kind of a change up from what Florida's dealt with in the past, recent past, right? You've got Napier and Mullen. Like, those are kind of offensive gurus. A little more flash, a little more win the presser. And John Sumrall's not that. He reminds me more of the Kirby Smart, Bill Belichick, Nick Saban attitude, demeanor, a little more grizzled. And I actually think that's going to work for Florida. Or at least it's a change from what they've been experiencing recently. And I think the recent experience has been rather negative. So you want to change from that. And I think John Sumrall, I think of the three non-Lane Kiffin SEC hires today, I think John Sumrall is my number one. Number two's got to be Alex Golesh. Goes from USF to Auburn. I think it's an upgrade over Hugh Freeze for sure. He'll bring the wide choice offense to Auburn. It can be a little gimmicky. It'll be recruited against. And it'll be basically talked about, hey, that's where quarterbacks and receivers go to die. You're going to see the Chris Brazzell conversation right now at Tennessee, right? Tennessee runs the wide choice with Josh Heupel, and Brazzell right now looks like the best receiving prospect in the draft or one of, and we'll see if he gets knocked at all during the pre-draft process because he plays in that gimmicky wide choice offense. But this is going to be an interesting move to see how he can, because Auburn's got a ton of talent. They've got a top 15, top 10 recruiting class. And we'll see if he can keep those guys and how they'll be kind of poached with this. I don't want to call it a gimmick, but it is gimmicky, the offense, the wide choice offense. So, and we'll see what happens with DJ Durkin, too, who behind Jim Knowles, the second highest paid coordinator in college football. And he did a pretty good job, frankly, as the interim. Almost beat Bama the other night. And we'll see how that situation plays out. Maybe they keep Durkin as the defensive coordinator. I don't know. I do think it is an upgrade, though, over Hugh Freeze. And I think Alex Golesh did a really good job. USF, by the way, whoever gets that job has been a gold mine for talent. I think it's the best mid-major job in college football. They just dedicated a ton of money to the new stadium. Great opportunity for whoever fills that job because the talent in that state of Florida, in that area as well, Central Florida especially, is second to none. in college football. You put Georgia and, you put California, Texas up there, but I would say Florida is, right on par. So good opportunity for whoever takes Golesh's job, but he did bring a lot of his people over with him to the Plains. And Alex Golesh will be a very interesting offense next year for sure at Auburn. The third hire, and if I was ranking them, right, I put Sumrall at the top. I say Golesh is a close second. I think Silverfield is a pretty distant third of the three. He goes from Memphis to Arkansas. I would say I'm neutral on the hire because I do think he did do a good job at Memphis. I mean, it is a mid-major, and he did kind of have them in the mix, but he had probably the best roster in his conference, like for 6 years, and he never made a conference championship game. So maybe that tells me he's not good at getting the most out of his talent, but he can bring talent to the table. And we'll see how he does down there in Fayetteville. They weren't happy about the hire. I saw some student accounts protesting on campus after the hire was announced. So we'll see how it goes. But Sumrall, Golesh, Silverfield are your new coaches in the SEC. Speaking of coaches, Penn State still doesn't have one. How about that? We have gone through the entire hiring process pretty much. All of the top programs, including some of the mid-tier Power Fours like an Oklahoma State. Even those teams have head coaches. Pat Kraft still has no idea what he's doing. Now, to be fair, maybe he's already hired his guy, Kalani Sitake, and we're just waiting for the dust to settle on the college football playoff and how he does in the Big 12 championship game next week, or this week, I guess. That's the buzz. Kalani Sitake. That's the name that I've heard floated. I mean, and to be fair, like I don't want to say I've been wrong about this. I said the source I got, was pretty certain on Drinkwitz. It turned out to be incorrect. Drinkwitz is denying he even interviewed at Penn State. I don't know if I buy that. But it does seem like Pat Kraft kind of kept shooting for the stars, and he kept getting denied. It kind of reminds me of the guy who puts his parlay in, and it's like 3-leg parlay, and he's like, I need this, this, and this to happen. And he gets to the last leg, and he's hoping, and he's praying, and then it ends up losing. Because I do think Pat Kraft definitely put some feelers out for some of the bigger names. But I just think it's really tough to get guys to come to Penn State and State College. I think it's a tough ask. And I just don't think there's a lot of appetite to come in and fix whatever ails the Nittany Lions right now. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's status. I don't know. But Pat Kraft struck out. Like, there are no big names left. You're not getting Kalen DeBoer. You're not getting Eli Drinkwitz. I don't know who else is left. I've heard Sitake. I've heard Josh Heupel. Those are the two names. Chesney, the JMU coach, looks like he's going to go to UCLA. I've heard that name floated. But at this stage where all of the other programs, this is musical chairs, all of the other programs have staked their claim on their next head coach. And I think Pat Kraft has just completely bumbled this entire process. I think he's the problem. Even you had players tweet. I saw Tony Rojas tweeting on Sunday, when is Penn State going to announce their head coach? I think we're all wondering that, Tony. Just a bizarre situation in Happy Valley. It's going to turn out where Penn State, in the hindsight's always 2020, but I think James Franklin is a better coach than any of the guys they're going to bring in now. I don't see them upgrading from James Franklin. And I think Pat Kraft bit off a little more than he could chew. We did have some firings on Sunday. Again, this college football coaching carousel is absolutely berserk. I have never experienced anything like it. Kentucky fired Mark Stoops. Michigan State fired Jonathan Smith. It looks like Pat Fitzgerald from Northwestern is going to slide right into the Sparty opening. Love that hire. But what these two firings did is it bumped the total buyout money in college football this year to well north of $200 million. Again, we are exceeding the GDP of small countries with the head coach buyout money. It's insane. I don't know exactly how much the Stoops buyout was, but Jonathan Smith was in the vicinity of $30 million. We were in the $180, $190 million category even before that. We're pushing $250 now. We're pushing $250 million in college football head coach buyout money. Wrap your head around that in the year of our Lord 2025. But Penn State still has no head coach. How about that? We did Rise and Wine a little early today. That's my Rise and Wine, is just the ridiculousness that is the college football coaching carousel. We had to lead with it. It's the number one story across basically every network, every show, every podcast right now. But good luck, Lane Kiffin, as you now depart. The scene of him getting onto the plane on the tarmac, I guess it was in Tupelo, Mississippi, right outside of Oxford. And he got out of the Cadillac Escalade, and there were like 100 people lined up outside of the airport or outside of the little private runway, booing and hissing and jeering. I mean, it was one of the most bizarre scenes I've ever seen. Honestly, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it before. Truly remarkable. The drama. Like, this is college football has a big problem right now with the calendar and the coaching. They're kind of restricted to these dates that they have to go by, but never change. As much as I want it to change, because it needs to change, because it hurts the players and the fans, which is not what it's supposed to be doing. It's providing one heck of a saga for us to cover here on the media side. So I do think we need reform at some point with the calendar. We need to get away from syncing it up with the academic calendar. Like, can we get away from the fact that these kids are student athletes? Like, they're professional athletes at this stage. And we need to just remove the academic calendar restrictions from the college football calendar. It needs to be its own independent entity. I know that sounds like they're better than the regular students, but let's be honest, they are. It's just, we have the college football business model has evolved so much that calling them students at this stage is like, it's like calling an elephant a lion. Like, you're looking at it, you're like, that's not a lion. That's an elephant. Like, I don't understand why we're not pushing the calendar to be more synchronized with what takes place in the college football season. And we should not force these coaches to have to leave at the time that they have to leave in order to get ahead of the transfer portal and the recruiting process and the signing periods and all of the little T's that have to be checked and I's that have to be, T's crossed and I's dotted in order to get a program back on track. So I don't know if it'll ever happen, but someone's got to step up. I saw Nick Saban say this on College Game Day. Like, someone in the College Football Leadership Council has to step up and change the calendar. Like, as much as I want to blame Lane Kiffin for trying to burn Oxford down on his way out, he kind of was handcuffed. Like, this was the situation. He had to go at this stage, and Ole Miss wasn't going to let him stay because they have to move on because they're also restricted by the calendar. So it's a mess, but this is the mess that we have. As, again, I'm having some cold and flu issues here. So here's my tea. It's cold now, but at least it'll get me through the show. All right, we'll go back to college football a little bit later in the show. We'll talk college football predictions, college football playoff predictions. We'll talk about the Heisman, and we'll get all that back in its normal spot. But I had to leave with college football tonight because it's the most insane story ever. All right, let's go to Week 13 in the NFL. I actually didn't check. Let me check real quick how the favorites did tonight. That's something that I did not check today before I came on the air, which I should have checked. Apologies about that. But I have it right here on my graph. I can pull it up really quick. So Week 13 in the NFL, I just finished watching. Wow, favorites only went 5-10 against the spread. Favorites over the last 2 weeks, 9-19-1 ATS. So we have flipped to dog season here in the late November, early December time. In fact, favorites haven't had an above 500 week since week 8. How about the last 5 week of favorites? 5-9, 6-8, 7-8, 4-9-1, and then 5-10 against the spread. There's still one game pending on Monday night with the Patriots favored over the Giants. But favorites have really struggled recently. So if you're a dog better, you're doing really well. I'm assuming the sports books also have done pretty well. Obviously, with favorites being the more popular choice. Overs are actually below 500 on the year now. So the overs and the favorites have really taken a nosedive over the last few weeks. Unders this week went 9-6. And over the last 2 weeks, NFL unders are 19-10. And you want to go back even further, over the last 3 weeks, 28-16. So if you are an under better or if you are an underdog better, you are having yourself a great month. And what does it mean, big picture? It means the market's finally caught up to the favorites, right? Favorites were doing really well. Market adjusted, and now you're seeing the pullback. Also, games are getting tighter. Weather's getting colder. It's harder to win with margin. I think you will likely see less favorites cover and more unders down the stretch. And then in the playoffs, first round it tends to flip, but then we'll see how things go from there. The biggest story in the NFL, I think, today, in terms of spinning it forward to week 14, is going to be the Justin Herbert hand injury. He fractured his non-throwing hand in the win over the Raiders. He will get surgery on Monday, but he is expected to play. At least he said he's expecting to play. Now, the Chargers do get the extra day Monday night, but that is a big story to keep an eye on this week, and that number between the Chargers and the Eagles will likely be greatly impacted by the Justin Herbert injury news. I'll do what I do every week. I've gotten some really positive feedback about this, and I'm going to keep doing it because I do think it has value. I'm going to go through each game. I'm going to go through each result, and I'm going to tell you if I upgraded or downgraded each team. And then at the end, I'll give you my ratings, and we'll do exactly what we did last week, where I'll give you my top 6, top 8, kind of my top tier, top contenders, Super Bowl Island, as we like to call it. And then we'll go from there. Let's start with Thursday. We had 3 games on Thursday. Packers over the Lions. Packers won as a dog outright, so we've got to upgrade Green Bay. Plus 10% net success rate. I thought Jordan Love and the Packers offense was humming, 6 yards per play. Lions played well. I just think Detroit right now is not the Detroit of last year. They're not as physical as they were last year, especially defensively. And I thought the Packers really did a good job limiting the mistakes, no turnovers, no sacks, 3 penalties. Clean football game on Thanksgiving against a very good Lions team. And it's a big win for the Packers because now next week they'll play the Bears, and if they win that game, they'll be a pretty big favorite to win the NFC North. Cowboys upset the Chiefs. How about that? We had a lot of underdogs. Oh, here comes a sneeze. Nope, held it in. I'll probably sneeze at some point during the show. Again, for those listening, fighting a little bit of a cold tonight, but we're battling through. Cowboys over the Chiefs, 31-28. Dallas, man, 7 yards per play. They lost the turnover margin, but they sacked Mahomes 3 times, and they were fantastic on third downs. They really won the game on third downs and with their offense. Dak Prescott looks like a top 10 quarterback. The Dallas defense did just enough. Couple of mistakes by the Chiefs. Again, I still am. I got so much crap on YouTube and social media for posting the clip that I would still bet the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, and I'm still bullish on the Chiefs. And they're like, I'm not even going to make the playoffs. Okay, let's see if they make the playoffs, and then we'll see what happens when they do. I'm still bullish on the Chiefs. I am. I don't think they're as good as they were last year, or maybe let me reframe. They're not as fortunate. They're not as timely as they were last year, but that can flip in a moment's notice. All it takes, they have not gotten the ball to bounce their way this year. It's the opposite of last year. They're losing all the one-score games that they won last year. But do not let them get into the playoffs. Just don't let them do it. But to be fair, maybe it's just not their year. We got to upgrade Dallas. We got to downgrade Kansas City, though, because anytime you lose as a favorite, you've got to be downgraded. We got to upgrade Cincinnati. I think the question is, how much do we upgrade Cincinnati, right? I gave them a big bump with Joe Burrow coming back. There's still a minus, though, in my power ratings. And I don't know if I'm ready to flip them to a plus, because when I look at this box score, now they won by 18, so it means a pretty wide margin for a 7-point dog. But when I look at the box score, Baltimore gained over 6 yards per play, and they turned it over 5 times. They had a PI call. They had a touchdown call back for an OPI, which you don't see too often. It was a very questionable call. And then you had the Isaiah Likely fumble at the goal line, which should have been a touchdown. So I don't know if I'm going to really upgrade Cincinnati to like the max for that win. You upgrade them, you bump them a point, you downgrade Baltimore a point. But I still am bullish on the Ravens. I think they're going to win the North. And I think if Lamar can get healthy for the playoffs, they're a dangerous team. So I'm going to upgrade Cincinnati. I'm going to downgrade Baltimore, but I'm not going to go nuts here because I do think that game was a little fugazi with the way the Bengals kind of avoided. The Bengals defense still bad. I don't care how good Joe Burrow is. Bengals defense still real bad. And I'm a little bit concerned that win might have been a little fool's gold. Nice win for the Bears, man. Like that, I know they lost yards per play, but they won the turnover battle, and they were really good running the ball. Like, when you look at what Ben Johnson's been able to do, I know his creativity calling plays is really solid, but the one thing nobody really expected was their run game to be as dynamic as it was. Monangai has stepped up, and he's now a stud. Like, he's a stud. And they have DeAndre Swift, who I think is also really versatile and also a little better between the tackles than maybe you think. The Bears are... I'm going through this dilemma with the Bears. Obviously, we're going to upgrade them here, and we're going to downgrade Philly. But I don't know how good they really are. For example, the sportsbooks still think they're a massive long shot to win the Super Bowl, despite the fact that they're the number 1 seed. If the playoffs ended today, the Bears would be if the regular season ended today, the Bears would be the number 1 seed in the NFC. And they're like 40-1 to win the Super Bowl. So the books have no respect for Chicago. But they're winning games. And Caleb Williams has taken a step forward. The defense looks a little bit better. To be fair, Philly gained over 6 yards per play. So it wasn't like the Eagles got completely whitewashed in this game. Like, they had a chance. They were in the game. Chicago just kind of outmuscled them. And if the Bears are kind of last year's Chiefs, where I don't know how they're winning these games, but they're winning these games, at some point, you have to ignore the red flags and just say, hey, maybe it's their year. I know that sounds really like head in the clouds, ignoring the facts, but there's so much about football that is intangible. The game is not played on paper. If the game was played on paper, the Chiefs would win every week because they have the best team and the best quarterback. But it's not. It's played within the margins. And the Bears right now are doing a good job at winning within the margins. And they're making plays in big moments. And they believe. They're buying into the coach. So I've been slow to upgrade Chicago, but maybe that's on me. Like, maybe I'm not seeing the full picture of the Bears. Maybe this is just their year. We'll see. Definitely going to upgrade him this week for going into Philly and winning on Black Friday. Awesome win by 9 as a touchdown dog. Nice win for the Niners on the road. Bad weather game in Cleveland. You had the Shador stuff, and, you just don't know what you're getting with him. He's a mixed bag, but he looked terrible. The Browns, though, did hold the Niners to under 4 yards per play. The difference was the turnovers, and Cleveland couldn't even reach the red zone. The Niners were also very good on third downs and didn't turn it over. And Brock Purdy played a clean football game on the road against a tough defense in bad weather. So you got to upgrade San Francisco. 18-point win as around a 4-5-ish point favorite on the road at Cleveland. Obviously, we downgrade Cleveland for the loss. Jacksonville just stuffed Tennessee into a locker. The Titans are, I think, the worst team in the NFL. The Saints and the Jets are kind of in that same boat, but hey, we'll get to the Jets and the Saints in a minute. They weren't terrible on Sunday. The Titans were awful. Lowest success rate of the day. Second lowest success rate of the day. Minnesota was worse, but still really bad. 2 turnovers, 10 penalties, 0 for 1 in the red zone, 2 for 12 on third downs, 3.4 yards per play. Like, just ugly all around. Cam Ward has no awareness. Like, it's just, I was watching that game because I had a couple pieces tied to it, a couple props, couple teaser legs, and I just, like, there was not one moment where Tennessee was in the game. Like, it seems like Cam Ward, like, sometimes quarterbacks don't have the touch. Like, he's 5 yards away from the line of scrimmage and he's like throwing a fastball, like 100 miles an hour. Like, just get it to him. Like, you don't need to show off your arm strength on every throw. Like, it's just, those are the little things where we haven't seen improvement this season. Cam Ward I think he started every game for the Titans this year. I might be wrong. He might have missed one for injury or something, but he has not shown any improvement from the start of the season till now, at least in my opinion. I think he looks like the same quarterback from week 1 till now. Just helter-skelter, like a chicken with his head cut off, running around out there like crazy. The O-line stinks. They don't have any receivers. Their one running back is not an elite running back. Like, there's no redeeming qualities right now for the Titans. They committed a ton of stupid penalties, special teams penalties, turnovers on special teams. Like, they're the worst team in the NFL, and they're probably going to have the number 1 pick in next year's draft. But you got to give credit to Jacksonville going on the road, not only covering as a road favorite in a divisional game outdoors in cold weather, but Jacksonville is a legit team. Like, their defense looks solid. Trevor Lawrence is figuring things out. I like the run game. Jacoby Myers scored. Like, Jacksonville's dangerous. They're first place team in the AFC South right now. That's a very winnable division. Liam Cohen's a good coach. He's getting a lot out of Trevor Lawrence. They've looked like they've improved this year. Sucks they lost Travis Hunter, but Jags might be a playoff team in the AFC. They're dangerous, especially if Trevor Lawrence can play with his head screwed on firmly, which he did in this game. So we upgrade Jacksonville, we downgrade Tennessee. Big upgrade for Houston. Give a shout out. Texans were one of my bigger side wagers of the week. Didn't need the points. Took 3.5, took 4.5. Didn't need the points. They did get outgained by Indy slightly, but after the Colts, so it was a weird play. The Colts were going in for a score, got stopped on 4th down, and then on the next play, C.J. Stroud threw a pick. And then like anytime that happens where your defense makes like a high leverage play and you're up, and then you give it back on the next play and you give them no time to like recalibrate, and they have to go right back onto the field, you knew the Colts were scoring right after that. They did, but they missed the extra point. And then from that point on, it was all Houston. And I'll be honest, I think Houston's winning this division, guys. I really do. I think their defense is playing at an elite level right now, and C.J. Stroud has options. The Texans receivers, Nico Collins looks healthy. He had a big game, went over his long reception prop. Kudos to those who tailed in the Discord. And the run game's got a little bit of juice with Woody Marks. The O-line still is a struggle. And if and when they face a legit pass rush in the playoffs, they'll probably lose. But what are we talking about here? They're 1 game back in the division. They still play the Colts again later this year at home. And Jacksonville's a problem. Let's see actually let's see how the Texans shape up right now. Let's see who they play. Actually, they have a tough game against the Chiefs next week, but then it's Cardinals, Raiders, Chargers, Colts. Like, I honestly think Houston can go 5-1 down the stretch. I really do. Or it would be 4-1. And if they do, they're 11-6. Meanwhile, Jacksonville, let's see who Jacksonville plays. Jacksonville plays the Colts, the Jets, the Broncos, the Colts, the Titans. So they're probably going to go at least 3-2, maybe 4-1. They're going to need to go 4-1. They're going to need to go 4-1 because Houston's coming on like gangbusters. And right now, if I had to pick in that division, let's actually see what the odds are in that division. That's interesting. I remember about a month ago when we first started this show, I said, you know what? The Texans at 6-1 to win the division would be a pretty decent bet. They're plus 350 right now. Would I still make that bet? Maybe. I would just bet them against the Chiefs next week if you really think they're going to win it. Because if they lose that game against the Chiefs, the odds will probably drop. In fact, I would not make that bet right now. Wait until they play the Chiefs. They're probably going to lose to the Chiefs next week on the road. And then I would make the bet for the Texans to win the AFC South next week. So we'll table that discussion for next week on the show. But we definitely upgrade Houston and we downgrade Indy. I mean, we've seen the best football the Colts have played this year. I wouldn't be shocked if the Colts lose out. I really wouldn't. Let's see who the Colts play down the stretch. Maybe they play the Titans again, so maybe they won't lose out. But they've lost 2 in a row. They've lost 3 of 4. Jags, Seahawks, Niners, Jags, Texans. Yeah, I'll be honest. I think the Colts might lose out, guys. I don't see a win there. Who they beating? At Jacksonville, at Seattle, Niners, Jags, Texans. I don't know who they're beating there. Indy, unfortunately, they showed you their best, and now they're showing you their worst. Daniel Jones is hurt. Jonathan Taylor's kind of running out of steam. And Sauce Gardner also took a knock. I saw him leave the game with an injury. So tough times for the Colts. My Shane Steichen Coach of the Year ticket's going to go down in flames. All right, Saints, Dolphins. Dolphins win, don't cover. They outgained New Orleans, but the Saints were a plus 3% net success rate. Miami was 0 for 2 in the red zone. That's why they didn't cover. They kicked too many field goals. I wouldn't upgrade or downgrade either team. I still kind of think New Orleans is bottom of the barrel, but they showed me a little bit. Tyler Shuck had a little flash in that game. Miami let him back in the game, though, right? Miami was up 16-0, took their foot off the gas. New Orleans came back in the game. Like, we see this all the time with good teams or even average teams. Like, it's really hard to play 4 full quarters. You see that finish line and you throttle down. And unfortunately, we did not hit our Dolphins minus 5.5 bet, which I gave out on last week's show as one of the early wagers, along with the Texans plus 3.5. I am still bullish on Miami, though. They've won 3 in a row, 4 or 5. I still think the Dolphins are a play-on team down the stretch. I don't think the market is fully adjusted to them being good. Like, they're kind of playing like the preseason expectation 500 playoff kind of team. Fringe playoff team. They're not playing like the team that looked like the worst team in the NFL through the first few weeks of the year. So keep an eye on Miami down the stretch. I think you might get an opportunity for some value there, but no upgrade, no downgrade on the Saints or the Dolphins this week. Falcons and the Jets. Fugazi game. This is on the Fugazi list here. Jets win it by a field goal, but they got outgained by 1.5 yards net yards per play, and they were a minus 9% net success rate. They won the turnover battle, and they made a few plays late in the game. I give the Jets credit. They're learning how to win some games. Like, they really did make a few nice plays late in the game. A couple plays on special teams. The kick that won the game was like a flutter ball, but it went through. And listen, when you win in the NFL, there's no apologies. When you lose in the NFL, there's no excuses. It's a very hard, black and white kind of league. You're either on one side of the aisle or the other. I've hammered the Jets and Aaron Glenn this year. Well, now I've got to give them some credit because they're going to play their way right out of a top 5 draft pick, but they're playing decent football right now. They really are. They have played better over the last few weeks. I don't think it's all Tyrod Taylor. I mean, they only gained 4.3 yards per play. I just think they're learning how to play football a little bit better, right? They beat the Bengals. They beat the Browns. They almost covered against the Patriots. They basically pushed against the Ravens, and then they went outright as a dog against the Falcons. I mean, got to give them some credit. But I'd prefer, as a Jets fan, if they lost a few games down the stretch, A, because we're under 6 on the win total, but B, I'd like for them to have a top 5 pick. They also have the Colts pick in the first round next year because of the Sauce Gardner trade. We're not going to upgrade or downgrade either team, though. I just think it was a Fugazi win. It really was. Atlanta with Kirk Cousins played well enough to win and cover. They just didn't. So the Jets I already have as one of my worst teams in the NFL. I still feel that they are. And the Falcons are pretty low anyway. So I'm comfortable with marking that in the Fugazi category and not touching the rating on either team for the Jets or the Falcons. Bucks beat the Cardinals by a field goal. The line was around 4-ish, 3.5, 4. So they didn't cover, but I'll be honest. You can make a case to downgrade Tampa. They were badly outgained in the game. How about this? Arizona plus 17% net success rate. Lost the game. Plus 1.5 net yards per play. Lost the game. Why did they lose the game? 2 turnovers. Guys, the turnover margin will always lead you to the fluky results. I'm going to leave Tampa be. Baker was banged up. He played through it. He looked okay. Arizona is still what they are, which is a team that's going to show you some moments with Jacoby Brissett. I was actually impressed that Arizona defense held Tampa to 4.9 yards per play. I think that's impressive, but I think we keep both teams in the same rung, right? Tampa win, no cover. Usually when a team wins, doesn't cover, I don't upgrade them. Same thing when a team loses but covers. I won't downgrade them. Typically, especially if the box score kind of says it was an even game. And this box score actually says Arizona might deserve a slight upgrade, frankly. But we'll leave it be for this week. Carolina, upset of the day. Carolina beats the Rams. The upset of Sunday, I should say. Actually, no, upset of the week. They were a 10-point dog. But, again, really fugazi result. Now, I'm going to downgrade the Rams because they had no business being a double-digit favorite on the road. Carolina's got a little spunk to them. They're playing good football right now. But the Rams were plus 1.6 net yards per play, plus 22% net success rate. Lost the game. Why did they lose the game? Take a guess. -3 turnover margin. Weird game. Carolina won a football game, scored 31 points, and made one trip to the red zone. They had a pick six, and they had a couple of long touchdowns on fourth down plays. A very fugazi result. I'm still going to downgrade the Rams, though, a point, because I do think we got a little ahead of our skis with the Rams. I had them number one in my power ratings. I still have them at the top, but not as far from the rest of the pack. I just don't think, and my colleague at Fox, Bill Krackenberger, sent this text to our group chat on Sunday night. He said there's no great teams in the NFL this year, and I agree with him. I think the Rams are the best team in the NFL right now, but that doesn't mean they're a great team. That just means they're better than the rest. The rest is very average this year, frankly. I mean, guys, the number one seed in the NFC, the Chicago Bears, are 40-1 to win the Super Bowl. That tells you everything you need to know about the top of the standings. Very bizarre season in the NFL. The best records are not the best teams. Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, not even close to the best records in the AFC. Patriots, like the Broncos almost lost to the Commanders, to Marcus Mariota on Sunday night. You're really trusting them in the playoffs? I think we're going to be in for one of the wild and wacky postseasons we've ever seen in the NFL. But I'm going to downgrade the Rams a point. No upgrade on Carolina. Fugazi game. I'm going to keep them where they are. Got to upgrade Seattle. Shut out the Vikings, 26-zip. They didn't really play that well on offense. Credit the Vikings defense for hanging in the game. Pick six and a bunch of turnovers. Brosmer, I mean, he was a freaking disaster for Minnesota. They were a -3 in the turnover margin. They turned it over 5 times. They only made one trip to the red zone, and they committed 10 penalties. Just a disastrous game for Minnesota's offense. Not even Kevin O'Connell can save this offense. Minnesota looks like one of the worst teams, one of the worst offenses in the NFL, and I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon. But you give their defense credit. They're going to keep them in games, but that was a really tough ask for Bosmer. Max Brosmer, the Minnesota kid, to make his first start in the NFL. Big upgrade for Buffalo. Really impressive game. I think they broke the Pittsburgh record for opponent rushing yards in a game. Like, that was the most ever opponent rushing yards at a Pittsburgh Steelers home game, like in the history of Heinz Field. I think I saw that note. But either way, dominating performance by the Bills. You hold the Steelers to under 4 yards per play. You run the heck out of the ball, and you get a big win on the road. The Bills are not dead yet in the AFC East. I know it looks like New England's running away and hiding, but they're 2 games back, and they still have to play them in a couple weeks. And the Patriots also have to play the Ravens on the road. I could absolutely see Buffalo and New England finishing with the same record in the AFC East when it's all said and done, and that division coming down to the final week of the regular season. Should be a lot of fun, but big upgrade for Buffalo. I don't want to say they're back, but they definitely gained a little bit of that mojo back, because when you go on the road and you run it right down the Steelers' throats, by the way, Pittsburgh's defense, I don't know what's going on with the Steelers' defense. That's the reason why the Steelers are terrible this year, or I guess I should say average. Aaron Rodgers is an average quarterback, which is kind of what we expected. Steelers' defense, bottom 10 unit. Didn't expect that. So Pittsburgh's got some soul searching to do on the defensive side. Chargers with a big win over the Raiders. We mentioned the Herbert news. That is the storyline of that game, but you got to upgrade the Chargers, at least for this performance. You dominated the Raiders. Vegas is a freaking disaster. An absolute dumpster fire. You fire Chip Kelly, the highest paid coordinator in the sport. You expect some kind of dead cat bounce, and they gain 3.4 yards per play. It's really bad. I'm not really sure how the Raiders improve. Geno Smith is a sitting duck in the pocket. He continues to take sacks at an alarming rate. And the Raiders defense could not get off the field on third downs. 12 for 17, the Chargers went on third down. So upgrade for the Chargers, downgrade for the Raiders. And then finally, the Sunday night game, Broncos and Commanders. Denver wins, doesn't cover. Slight win in the box score. Give Marcus Mariota a standing ovation, man. That dude hung in there and made some big-time throws in this game. Bo Nix was checked down Charlie, as he typically is, but they had a couple of plays that won them the game. I'm still not sold on Denver. I'm still not sold on Bo Nix. So I don't care that they're 10-2 and they've won, I think, 8 in a row. I am not sold on this Broncos team, especially when we get to the playoffs. Excuse me, they've won 9 games in a row. So they started 1-2, and they've won 9 games in a row. We'll see who they play next week. But just a awesome season for the Broncos. But I think the Broncos are kind of last year's Chiefs, the way they're winning games. And I think when they get to the playoffs, they don't have a Patrick Mahomes to bail them out. I don't think Bo Nix is that guy just yet. So that is the recap for Week 13 in the NFL. Let's go to the ratings. So I still have the Rams as my number one team. My ratings are Rams, Bills, Chiefs, Seahawks. That's my top 4 right now. And then the second tier, Eagles, Lions, Ravens, Packers, Texans, Niners, Bears. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 teams that are kind of in that top tier. Maybe top 2 tiers. My true contenders right now, the teams that I think can actually win the Super Bowl. I'll give you 6, just like I gave you last week. Actually, no. I'm going to give you 7. I'm going to add 1. I'm going to add Seattle. And I'm going to add Green Bay. Rams, Bills, Chiefs, Seahawks, even though I don't trust Sam Darnold. Eagles, Lions, Ravens, Packers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's my top 8 right now in the NFL. I think the Texans, the Niners, and the Bears are right there. The Texans, O-line, big red flag. Niners, injuries, defense, big red flag. Bears, winning so many close games, when will the luck run out? Big red flag. To be fair, you can also put a red flag on the Packers for their inability to beat the bad teams, which to me shows a lack of killer instinct. The Ravens, injury to Lamar Jackson, that's a red flag. Lions, O-line injuries, that's a big red flag. Eagles, the whole offense is a red flag. Seahawks, Sam Darnold is the red flag. I really think the 3 teams in the NFL that are kind of not sans red flags, but maybe we'll call them beige flags. Rams, Bills, and Chiefs. I think those are the 3, guys, honestly. I think the winner of the Super Bowl this year will be either the Rams, the Bills, or the Chiefs. If the Chiefs get into the playoffs, boy, people are going to hate that. People love to hate on the Chiefs. We've talked about this on prior shows. Chiefs derangement syndrome. I'll say this. If the Chiefs get into the playoffs, I will be betting them every single week. Because I think this year the task is just to make the playoffs. Again, you've got Denver, Indy, New England, like all of these teams massively overachieving their numbers. First of all, Indy's about to fall off the map completely. Indy's done. And the Chiefs have the tiebreaker over Indy. So I honestly think right now, the AFC playoffs, it's going to come down to the Chargers and the Bills and the Texans. One of those teams has a chance to knock the Chiefs out. The reason why the Bills are very dangerous is because they have the tiebreaker over the Chiefs, as do No, well, the Chargers wouldn't, because if the Chiefs lose to the Chargers, they're done anyways. The Chiefs have to beat the Chargers when they play them next, because that is just a massive game in conference play. Like, the thing that's holding back the Chiefs right now is they're 3-4 in the AFC. Like, 4 out of their 6 losses are in the AFC. I hope the Chiefs can make the playoffs. It's not going to change my rating on them because they're having a weird year. I'm still rating them very high. But it's fair to push back and say, how can you have a team rated top 3 in they're the 3rd ranked team right now in my power ratings. How can you have the 10th seed in the AFC ranked 3rd in your power ratings? Like, I get it. Like, it is fair pushback, but power ratings are weird. They work in funny ways. It's not cut and dry. It really isn't. So my Super Bowl island's a little murky. I wouldn't want to go visit there. I wouldn't want a vacation on Super Bowl Island right now. It's a little weird. It's a little wacky this year. But Rams, Bills, Chiefs, Seahawks, Eagles, Lions, Ravens, Packers. That's kind of the top 8 that I'll settle on right now in Week 13, heading into Week 14. I'll put the Texans, the Niners, and the Bears on standby. You're going to get upgraded to first class pretty soon to Super Bowl Island if you keep winning games, especially the Bears. Like, I mean, at some point, we just have to give them credit for winning games. But that's my ratings for this week. Again, give me all the pushback you want on the Chiefs. I don't care. I've still got them as a top 3, top 4 team in the NFL. I still would not want to play this team on any given Sunday because they have all the makings of an elite team. All right, let's go to Week 14 in the NFL. I'm going to run through the lines, and I'm going to tell you what my ratings are on each game, and we'll see if we can find any value. I do have one. I already put one play on my little spreadsheet here that I do want to mention to you guys, but the rest of it, not a ton of value based off of my initial run-through. Thursday night, let's start Thursday night. Detroit hosts Dallas. Both teams coming off the Thursday game, so normal rest. I make the game 5.5. It's 3. Maybe I am not upgrading Dallas enough for what they've done, but maybe I'm a little hesitant still. But to be fair, I've been slow to upgrade Dallas, even though they played well over the last few weeks. And maybe I'm a little too high on Detroit because their O-line's a little banged up and I haven't downgraded them enough. So I think that's why the discrepancy is there. Would I lay 3 with Detroit, considering I make the game 5.5? Yeah, I'll consider it. I haven't dug into the matchups enough, though, and I want to do that. So when I'm close on a game and I'm kind of undecided, I'll put it on the maybe pile. Lions at 3. I even see a 2.5 out there. Actually, it's kind of a juice 2.5. It's pretty much 3. Yeah, I would consider making that bet, but maybe. I haven't gotten there yet. Washington hasn't reopened yet. They're at Minnesota. I make the game Washington minus 2.5, and it looks like it's 1.5 on the reopen. So not much there. Miami at the Jets. I make the game 5.5. Miami is a 5.5 point favorite. Remember, I'm a little higher on Miami than most, and the line is 2.5. Yeah, I'm probably going to lay it with Miami this week. The reason that I haven't bet it yet, first of all, I think this goes to 3. I think it goes to 3. For 2 reasons. One, I just can't imagine the Sharps are going to be wanting to back the Jets again. Like, let's just recalibrate this for a minute. Atlanta with Kirk Cousins was a 2.5 point favorite at the Jets. Miami with Tua, 2.5 point favorite at the Jets. You tell me which quarterback you'd rather have. I think the answer is obvious. It's obviously Tua. Maybe you push back and say Atlanta's defense is a little bit better. Okay, I'll give you that. But the quarterback matters more against the spread. And I think Tua is an upgrade over Kirk Cousins. I just think that's obvious. I'll probably bet Miami as long as the weather's not terrible. That's the other factor about this game. Southern team coming north, outdoors, MetLife, windy, who knows? Keep an eye on the weather this week, but I could see myself getting to the window on the Dolphins -2.5 under a field goal, considering I make the game 5. All right, let's move on. Tennessee at Cleveland. I make it 3.5. It is 3.5. Next. I want nothing to do with that game. That game is a shit fest. Pittsburgh at Baltimore. Ravens. Looks like I make the game 7.5. And the Ravens are a 6-point favorite. 6.5-point favorite. So about a point difference, but through a key number. I'm guessing that gets to 7 this week. First of all, the Ravens have the extra mini bye, right? They played Thursday night. The Steelers look banged up. Aaron Rodgers had like a bloody nose. His hands all broken. Their defense stinks. It's a divisional game, but I could absolutely see the Ravens running that. I will likely get to the window on Baltimore under a touchdown. I think that's probably a decent bet, actually. I might add that to my list. So right now I've got Miami and Baltimore on the maybe standby bet list for this week. All right, let's move on. Seattle at Atlanta. Seahawks a 7.5-point favorite right now. I make the game 9.5. So 2 points, but it's over a key number and it's a high spread. I'm probably not gonna lay 7.5 on the road with Seattle. Probably a pretty popular teaser bet this week, though, to get Seattle through both keys. All right, let's move on. Indy at Jacksonville. Indy is about a 1-ish point road favorite. I don't know about that number. I make it a pick 'em. If you can bet Jacksonville as a dog, I probably would. My guess is the Jacksonville dog money comes in pretty strong. I liked what I seen with Jacksonville. Oh, God. I apologize for that. I knew eventually I would sneeze. If you were watching the video, you probably got a good glimpse of me just like completely snotballing that. Goodness gracious. Yeah, maybe we should not do the podcast when we're sick next week. Hopefully this doesn't last too long. But I'm going to bet Jacksonville as a dog this week. I think you got to bet the Jags as a dog. All right, Bears at Packers. Green Bay -5.5. I make the game 2.5. Woo, boy. We got to bet the Bears, guys. And again, this goes back to the sportsbooks having no respect for Chicago. But the Bears are winning close games. They're learning how to play close games. They believe in their coach. They believe in Caleb Williams. They believe in their defense. They believe in their run game. Now, Green Bay has an extra day to rest. Chicago, tough travel, right? You go to Philly, come back, then you got to go to Green Bay. I know it's not a long trip, but it's a lot of travel in a shorter period of time. I think Chicago +5.5 feels like play of the week potential, maybe. I think you just got to keep backing this Bears train until it runs off the tracks. And maybe it is this week against a good, to be fair, Green Bay's defense ain't no joke. But I don't know. I make a game 2.5 and the line's 5.5. I got to take the points. So Chicago +5.5. That's the one I had circled coming into this show. And, we've added a couple more, but I think Bears +5.5. That's a play. All right, let's move on. New Orleans at Tampa. Line is Tampa -7.5. And I make the game 10.5. Again, I think you got the Baker injury to deal with here. And maybe that's why the line's a little bit shaded. The Bucs didn't cover over the weekend. I am very down on New Orleans. That's why I make it 3 points off market. Am I willing to lay over a touchdown with Tampa right now? Probably not. I'll probably pass on that one. But it'll be a popular teaser. That's for damn sure. Denver at Vegas. Looks like this line reopened 7.5. I make it 7.5. Good luck getting anyone to bet Vegas this week. Rams at Cardinals. Actually, to be fair, Denver didn't look great. And they're coming off an overtime game. And I'm sure some of the sharps will want to take the 7 and hook, but not me. I might tease Denver, though. Maybe. Rams at Cardinals. Rams look like they're an 8-point favorite. I make the game 10.5. So a couple points off market. Probably a downgrade for the Rams because of their loss. maybe too much of a downgrade. That'll be a very popular teaser choice this week. I don't see the Rams losing that game. So getting the Rams through both key numbers, getting them down to 1.5, yeah, I think that might be a popular teaser. That might be the most popular teaser choice of the week. Cincinnati at Buffalo. Buffalo, a 5.5-point favorite. I make it 11.5. Ooh, what am I missing here? I probably have not upgraded the Joe Burrow Bengals enough. I probably still have some half-baked Flacco numbers in my Bengals rating. And that's why I'm 5 points off market. I probably don't care, though. I probably will lay with Buffalo. I liked what I saw from the Bills on Sunday. I really do. I think they are not back, but if they can do that to the Steelers defense, imagine what they can do to the Bengals defense. Coming off a win. I think this is a good fade spot for Cincy, and I will probably take Buffalo here, -5.5. Houston at Kansas City, we mentioned this game, 3.5-point favorite. Looks like I make it 3.5. So I think Kansas City wins, but they have not won with margin this year. So I'm not going to be laying more than a field goal with the Chiefs. Chargers hosting the Eagles Monday night. I make it 1.5, lines 3. Not even going to touch this now, though, because of the Justin Herbert news, which obviously is going to have a big impact on this game. So the early bets I like a lot of early bets in the market. I really do. I like Miami -2.5. I like Baltimore -6. I like Chicago +5.5. And I like Buffalo -5.5. Those are definitely bets that I'm going to be making this week. And the Jags. I like the Jags as a dog. I see a 2 out there, but mostly 1.5. So Jags +1.5. Miami -2.5. Baltimore -6. Buffalo -5.5. Wow, and as I say this now, some of the hooks are getting evaporated off the Houston line. So the market's probably going to land 3 there. Houston, Kansas City. I Chiefs by a field goal, probably. Chiefs are going to win on a last-second field goal. You heard it here first, unless it doesn't happen. All right, that is your NFL recap for Week 13 and your look ahead to Week 14. I like a lot on the look ahead lines next week. So keep an eye on that. I'll recap it in the newsletter, but there's certainly a lot of meat on the bone. All right, let's go to college football playoff predictions. I mean, goodness gracious. I went through the college football playoff numbers this week, and I don't know what the heck's going to happen. I think I know what the committee will do on Tuesday night, but we still have the conference championship games to play, and that's when things get really interesting. So I'm just going to give you my top 14. These are the top 14 teams I think will be in the college football playoff rankings come Monday night or Tuesday night, excuse me. Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, Georgia 3, Texas Tech 4, Oregon 5, A&M loses, drops to 6th. I'm going to drop Ole Miss a spot to 7 because of the Lane Kiffin thing. Oklahoma 8, Notre Dame 9, Alabama 10, BYU 11, Miami 12, Vandy 13, Texas 14. Now, I think the top 8 is a lock to be in the field. Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia, Texas Tech, Oregon, A&M, Ole Miss, Oklahoma. Those teams are in the college football playoff. Period. End of story. There's some question about Alabama. If they lose to Georgia in the SEC championship game and it's a bad loss, 2 touchdowns plus, I could see the committee dropping them out. However, it is really tough to penalize them for playing an extra game in the toughest conference against a top 5 team. If the regular season ended today, they're in. I don't see a lot of scenarios where they're not in. It has to be a hellacious blowout for Georgia, which could happen. But I don't know. I still think Bama deserves to get in. I really think they're a top. I think they're a top 5 team in the country, frankly. They just haven't played well over the last 4 or 5 weeks. They hit their stride mid-season, and then they ran out of gas. And I think when you run out of gas in college football in the SEC, you run out of gas. So I do think we have a lot of questions that need to be answered. And who knows, maybe they beat Georgia. And then there's no question. The Notre Dame debate is fascinating. Power ratings-wise, they're a top 5 team, maybe even a top 3 team. I saw one power rating that I trust that had them as the number 2 team in the country. But are we talking about best team or most deserving? Because Miami beat them head-to-head. And Vandy's 10-2 with some really good wins and definitely deserves to be in the conversation as well. So I honestly think Notre Dame's probably in, but that is a conversation that really is intriguing. If they're kissed up against Miami in the rankings and Miami's out and Notre Dame's in and Miami beat Notre Dame, it's really tough to justify that. I mean, unless the committee's just going to set the precedent that head-to-head does not matter and quality losses matter more, if you're valuing quality losses over head-to-head, then yeah, Notre Dame should be in. Because Notre Dame lost to Miami and Texas A&M, and Miami lost to Louisville and SMU. So, obviously, Notre Dame's got better losses. But Miami beat Notre Dame head-to-head. It's a really weird argument. I actually hope they do finish right next to each other in the rankings because it will be a precedent moment for the committee to tell us for certain if the head-to-head is irrelevant in college football, which it very well could be. Texas, they'll be the highest 3-loss team, but Texas, the argument for Texas getting into the college football playoff is like the girl you date that has that one glaring red flag that you're ignoring. Oh, she's hot, she's fun, she makes me feel all the things, but she lost to 4-win Florida as a favorite. So we can't put her in the playoff. Like, I think, and it's their 3rd loss. I just don't think there's an argument for Texas. I really don't. The bid stealer here is BYU. So BYU plays Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game this week. Obviously, Texas Tech 2-touchdown favorite. Like, we think they're going to win the game. But if BYU wins, and it's close, BYU steals a bid from someone. Because then you got to put Texas Tech in, and you got to put BYU in. So the Big 12 championship game, the Alabamas, the Notre Dames, the Miamis, they will be watching that game very closely. And they will be big Texas Tech fans. I did do a brief preview of championship week. I'll be honest, I don't see a ton of value on the board. I think the most intriguing game is the UNLV Boise game. So Boise won that game 56-31 a few weeks ago, and the game went way over the total of 60.5. And this total is lower at 57.5. So I was on the over in the UNLV game on Saturday night. It hit a parlay for me. I would probably bet the over in this game too. UNLV Boise over 57.5, I think, is probably going to be a bet. I'm sorry, guys. My nose is just so runny right now. If you're watching the stream and you're actually seeing me like pick my nose during each take, you probably think I'm the grossest person alive. That's fair. You try doing an hour-long podcast when you're sick. Georgia's a 2.5-point favorite over Bama. Obviously, Bama won the first game on the road as a dog. Total was 54. Now it's 47.5, which I think more reflects what these two teams are at this point. But I would not be shocked if that game goes over. I actually think the first game should have went over. There were a bunch of opportunities for both teams, especially Georgia in the red zone couldn't figure anything out. I think that game goes over. I think I'm going to be betting a couple overs in these conference championship games. The BYU-Texas Tech game, Texas Tech stuffed them into a locker in that first game. 29-7 was the final. They were a 13.5-point home favorite. Now they're a 13.5-point neutral site favorite. Probably laying off that game. I think Texas Tech wins, but maybe doesn't cover. Big Ten, Indiana, Ohio State. We'll get to this game a little more in the Heisman prediction, But these teams have not played since last year when Ohio State ended Indiana's undefeated regular season. Both of these teams are comfortably in the playoff. They're both undefeated. They're both going to the playoff. The only thing this is going to determine is who gets the bye and who doesn't. And if you ask Ohio State last year, maybe the bye doesn't help. So I don't know what to make of this game. I honestly don't. I think Ohio State's the better team, but last year they won the national championship and they didn't have a bye. Does that play into their minds at all? Do they throttle down at all? Do they not want to show anything too much? Like I don't know which team is going to go full on to win this game. I think Indiana will be, like, if I had to gauge it, Indiana's going to give 100% and Ohio State's going to give like 95. And maybe that's enough for Indiana to cover. The ACC's a freaking mess, bro. UVA's a 3-point favorite against Duke. UVA won this game by 17 2 weeks ago as a 5-point road dog. Game stayed under the total of 60. The disaster scenario for the ACC is Duke winning the game and the conference not getting a college football playoff berth, which is very possible. Do I think that will happen? No. I think if Duke wins the game, I think they finish ahead of JMU in the rankings. But maybe not. I mean, maybe they win an absolute just gross game and you can't upgrade them too much, and JMU wins by 50 over Troy as a 21-point favorite. And maybe they give the spot to JMU. Maybe you get two group of 5 teams in the college football playoff. North Texas at Tulane, both of those teams will be led by coaches who are departing for the Power 4. Eric Morris going to Oklahoma State. We mentioned John Sumrall going to Florida. First meeting for these teams since last year. The winner of this game is definitely in the college football playoff. North Texas is a 2.5-point favorite. Highest total of the week, 67.5. I think Tulane wins. Just my gut. Although the Sumrall thing is weird, but it gets canceled out by the fact that Eric Morris is leaving too. So I think Tulane wins. I think they're the better team, but we'll see. So my conference championship week picks, I like the over in UNLV Boise. I like the over in Georgia Bama. And I like Tulane as a dog. I do. So I'll probably roll with that. The other game, there's 2 other games we didn't mention. The MAC, Miami of Ohio, Western Michigan. Western Michigan, a 2.5-point favorite, total 43.5. These teams played about a month ago. Miami won by 9 as a 2-point home favorite. Total was 40, so we've seen a slight tick up on the total. Western Michigan's been the better team this year. They probably win. Miami needed to win a tiebreaker to get into the conference championship game. So under a field goal, I lean Western, but I've not watched much MAC this year. I don't really know much about either team. And then the real shit game of the week is the Conference USA game. Kennesaw State at Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State won by 9 2 weeks ago. They covered as a 3.5-point home favorite. Game went over the total of 56.5, so the total's gone up. Kennesaw State, man, you got to give them credit just for being in this game. They made a 7-win jump this year under their first-year head coach, Jerry Mack, looking to win the league in just their 3rd year at the FBS level. I'm rooting for Kennesaw State, but Jacksonville State probably wins this game. All right, let's get to the Heisman. This is a fascinating discussion. So I'll give you my Heisman ballot right now, and then we'll talk about the odds after. So I've got Julian Sayin at the top. He is the highest graded player in college football per Pro Football Focus. He's got the highest completion rate in the country, and Ohio State's the best team. He's my number 1. I'll put Mendoza second. He had his one Heisman moment at Penn State, but for the most part, it's kind of been just a lot of good around him, and he's just kind of kept the ship steady. He hasn't really shown the flash that I think you want a Heisman Trophy winner to show. He's been really good, but that's not what the Heisman is. It's the best player in college football, and I don't think that's Fernando Mendoza this year. I actually think it's Jeremiah Love. The problem is the last thing the committee's going to remember is Jeremiah Love getting hurt, leaving the game against Stanford, and not breaking the Notre Dame record, not running for 100 yards, and kind of having a subpar performance in his last game of the year. He's the highest graded running back in the country. I think he's the best player in college football. but he's probably not going to win the Heisman this year, unfortunately, because we did give him out on last week's show, and I thought he was the guy. I thought if he went off against Stanford, and he was doing so, first drive, he had 50-plus yards and a touchdown, and then he got hurt. Unfortunately, the injury bug got him. That probably derailed his Heisman hopes. If he goes for 200 yards in that game, he's probably the Heisman Trophy winner. But he didn't, so he's not. I've got Jacob Rodriguez 4th on my Heisman ballot. Second highest graded player in the country this year behind Julian Sayin. He's the best defensive player in the country, period. He should get an invite to New York. Texas Tech's had an awesome year. Give this kid some love, Jacob Rodriguez. And then 5th, I've got Diego Pavia. Great story. Love him. Gritty, tough, but not going to win the Heisman, guys. Come on. He's not winning the Heisman Trophy. I'm sorry. He's just not. He's not even the best quarterback in the country. And they've got 2 losses. He's a better runner than Mendoza and Sayin, but goodness gracious, can we get off the Diego Pavia Heisman train? So now we get to the conundrum of Julian Sayin, to me, is like the clear-cut Heisman right now, yet he is not the favorite. And not only is he not the favorite, Fernando Mendoza is the favorite. Fernando Mendoza is an underdog against Ohio State. This makes no sense. If Ohio State wins, Julian Sayin is going to be the Heisman Trophy winner. Ohio State is minus 220 on the money line to win against Indiana. Yet you can get Julian Sayin at plus 150 to win the Heisman. That makes no sense. Conversely, Fernando Mendoza is a coin flip right now, basically even odds to win the Heisman. Indiana is almost a 2-1 dog in the game against Ohio State. Makes no sense. If you think Fernando Mendoza is going to win the Heisman Trophy, just bet Indiana to beat Ohio State. We've said this for like a month. And this is what it's going to come down to. One game where the money line odds are completely flipped from the Heisman odds. It is a bizarre scenario. I don't know if the sports books are sleeping at the wheel or if they really think Mendoza can be the guy. Or maybe they just have so much exposure on Mendoza that they have to lower his price. Could be that. But you got to bet Julian Sayin to win the Heisman, right? Like, I think Ohio State's the best team in the country. I think Ohio State's winning the Big Ten championship game. I think Julian Sayin's winning the Heisman Trophy. But those prices are not congruent. You're getting significantly more value on Sayin to win the Heisman than you are Ohio State to beat Indiana in the Big Ten championship. That's just the way I see it. I'm wrong a lot, but the way I see it, the winner of the Big Ten championship game, unless it's like a 6-3 defensive shitfest, the winner of the Big Ten championship game, that quarterback will be the Heisman Trophy winner. And the prices are flipped. Mendoza's the favorite in the Heisman, but the underdog in the Big Ten title. Makes no sense. I would bet Julian Sayin right now. If you woke up today with $100 and you said, I have to bet the Heisman, Julian Sayin. I think the best price I saw was plus 155 at FanDuel. That's the best price. I will likely be putting a small wager on that this week. Okay, let's wrap up the show as we always do, which is Morning Glory. I will give you an actionable element from Monday Night Football. Giants are a touchdown dog. I believe that game is in New England. It is. Patriots a touchdown home favorite, total 46.5. We're going to the prop market because that's really the only value I see. And I'll give you a Travion Henderson over 13.5 yards longest rush. He's a game breaker. I was actually surprised this number was so low. But the reason is he hasn't broken a lot of long runs this year. He's actually only gone over this number 3 times all season and twice in the last 5 weeks since his workload's kind of increased. He's averaging 16 yards per carry over the last 4 games. So we're starting to see a little bit more love for Henderson. But really, this is a play against the Giants defense, which is 32nd in explosive play rate allowed this year. And they have been really bad against the run. a 10% explosive run rate allowed. They are giving up a ton of explosive runs. And let's be honest, 13 and a half, you only need a 14-yard run. You hit this. Felt like it was a little bit off market. Felt like this number should be in the high teens. But I don't bet these prop markets too often. This one stood out to me, though. So I'll give you Travion Henderson over 13 and a half yards for his longest rush. Morning Glory for episode 10 of the morning after. How about that? We've made it to double digits. We haven't been canceled yet. I don't think we're going to get canceled. I think this show has a bright future. Speaking of, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the newsletter. Follow us on social media. Support the content. It's all free. I ain't charging you a dime for any of it. I'm doing it out of the goodness of my heart because I love getting in front of the microphone, even when I'm sick, battling a cold, to give you the latest and the greatest on what's taking place in the world of sports. Don't forget, hit all the buttons on your way out. Like, love, retweet, all of it. I love y'all, and we'll see you next week on The Morning After.